For years, I optimized my life for the photo, for the look, for the visual that everyone would see when they were looking in on my life. But that visual kept me empty. It made me feel like an imposter to the person who I really was. Where when I was building my business at the time, all these people looking in had this impression of me that wasn't really true. And even some other people, when I was making videos and perhaps whatever, it just didn't feel right. And I realized that so much of my actions, not even just in business, but in day to day life, were really almost just controlled by the thoughts of other people, by what other people would think, and by how they would act and respond to things. And so I'd keep my opinions quite quiet. I wouldn't step out of line. I wouldn't question things. I wouldn't say, perhaps, those more difficult things that perhaps those loved ones needed to hear. And so I kept those things quiet. And I did this for quite a few years. And it's only been pretty recently where I felt more comfortable enough to step out of that and to actually start doing things which more align with me. And yeah, that's meant that perhaps some friends and family have perhaps questioned and challenged. But that's been okay because I now feel more aligned with where I'm going and the sort of thing that I'm doing. And I'm less concerned about necessarily having to put on this image for other people, especially online. This is why my content now online, and even when I'm doing, say, things like game development, I try and keep it as authentic as possible, right? I try and keep it to the point and I don't try and put on this crazy image. And that's what's been a really big difference for me, and it's taken a lot of stress and pressure off. Another thing for me was changing the clothes that I wear. The clothes that I wear usually is pretty much going to be a lot of black, right? I have a lot of black t-shirts and, like I pretty much wear similar sort of clothes every day. When before I used to wear all sorts of smart sort of stuff that would range massively. But I realized that all of those clothes that I used to wear were not for me, but it was more for other people and the image I wanted other people to see. But now I just feel comfortable with what I'm wearing now and the image I have. And that's given me a lot more peace, which I think a lot of people really struggle with. Where, like, I mean, I've sort of seen and spoken to people which really get worried and caught up in what other people will think and what other people will look at them as. And I just want you really to ask yourself the questions for this video, just asking yourself, how much do people really care? Because I found the biggest shift with me was realizing that people really don't care, right? Like they actually don't. And it's like they might see you, they might look at you, but within 5 seconds, they're thinking about something else because you're really not that important. And I found that to be quite freeing because now every day when I am taking those actions, when I am thinking about what it is that I want to do, or just generally making decisions, there's less of a weight on what other people will think, how they'll perceive me, because I'm most important in my life and my opinions are also most important. I think part of it is also being a bit selfish as well, right? You might have other people that try and tell you how you should live your life, right? And you might feel perhaps obligated to listen to that and to really take that in because perhaps they're close to you or perhaps you're a bit unsure. But I think what's really important is don't live for other people, right? You don't want to live for other people. You want to live true to what you want to work towards, which is why now I basically quit the business which I was building for 2.5 years, or mostly, and I'm now working on stuff which is more important to me because that's the way I want to take my life. And I don't want anyone else, or I'm not going to let anyone else get in the way of it. And that's what, for me, is most important. So ask yourself this question. Ask yourself if you're actually living for someone else, living to someone else's expectations, and if you're truly doing or acting the way you want to be acting today. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment below if this resonated, and I'll chat soon.